Okay, and let's rise for pledge allegiance of the flag. Got a flag right there, I believe we can see. Okay. I pledge allegiance.
Allegiance.
Flag.
Flag,
United States of America.
United States of America,
To the republic
Republic
for
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
with
and
liberty
justice
liberty
for
and
all.
justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Maglio,
I'm here.
Trustee Berkshire. I can't hear him, but I see him. Trustee Devitt,
Here.
Trustee Domke,
Here.
Trustee Poleski,
Here.
Trustee Sarno,
here.
Trustee Trejo.
Here.
Hey, can I have a motion to accept this evening's prepared agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Trustee Devitt,
Aye.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
Trustee Poleski,
Aye.
Trustee Sarno,
Aye.
Trustee Domke.
All right.
You have a quorum.
And our motion is carried for the agenda for this evening. Okay, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the village board will be meeting virtually, and it's being streamed live on the village's WebTube channel. Those who did wish to participate in the public comment could have submitted a notice to the village board by email, phone call, and I believe that's it. Are there any public comments this evening, ma'am?
I have no public comments were submitted prior to the meeting
Okay.
through my office.
And to our virtual host, are there anybody in standby waiting to make public comments? I will take that as no.
There are no comments, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to then our officials and staff reports. I am first. I would like to have a motion to reappoint Margaret Ross to the Firefighters Pension Fund Board for a term to end at April 30th, 2023, with the concurrence of the board.
So moved. Second.
All right. I'll need a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Trustee Domke,
Aye.
Trustee Devitt,
Aye.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
Trustee Sarno,
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
Trustee Poleski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Does everybody have the public comment guidelines on their screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey. And then I'd like to ask for a motion to pass an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the Village of Roselle, Illinois, limit on the number of licenses covering the sale of alcohol and liquor in the Village of Roselle, and this is for a T license for video gambling.
Moved.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Patrick Devitt.
Thank you.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, can I have a roll call, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Devitt,
Aye.
Trustee Poleski,
Aye.
Trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
Trustee Sarno,
Aye.
Trustee Domke,
All right.
Trustee Trejo.
Aye.
And our motion is carried. Okay, moving right along. Any village trustees have a report to make this evening?
Nope.
I can't see everybody's hands, so I take that none. Okay, village clerk.
No report.
Okay, village attorney.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Chamber of Commerce liaison.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Roselle Chamber of Commerce, I have not gotten a word that it has been sold out, so I'm going to advertise Wednesday's lunch is being held at Bellagio's, which is over there on Lake Street. It's at 11:30 a.m. $20 per person, which includes a salad, entree, dessert, and beverage. And there's limited to 30 seats, but like I said, I have not heard that it's sold out. So if you're looking for lunch, please think of Bellagio's and help with a chamber. And that is all I have.
Is that weather permitting?
You know, I have not been told that either. I believe they are utilizing the outdoor space, which is under the canopy. So I believe rain or shine, it's going to go on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, treasurer's report.
Good evening. In your packet this evening is the May 2020 Treasurers Report. And as I did last month, my discussion tonight will focus on what has happened in June so far, but I can answer any questions you may have on the May report. One point I'd like to make is that in the report you can see the village is reporting a $476,500 deficit to date in the general fund. And just for a point of reference, at the same time last year, the village also reported a deficit, which was $465,348. There's not really much difference between 2019 and 2020 if you look at that difference. Revenues, of course, have been reduced the last few months, but spending has also been down during the same time period as many employees are working from home. June marks the month where we start seeing activity from the beginning of the pandemic in March. June sales tax for March activity was 13% lower than 2019. But when you look at the numbers a little bit, you see the top 7 sales tax producers were only down 4.4% from last year. And the top 25 were only down 8.8%, which suggests that there could be businesses that have not paid their sales tax or at least reported state for the month of March. And that I can see in the numbers as well, as there were 326 businesses reporting sales tax in 2019 and only 292 in 2020. Local use tax was 15.2% higher than last year in the month of June. And this could be the result of more online shopping as consumers moved from shopping in stores to shopping online as malls and stores began to close in mid-March. Income tax in June was only $600 or 0.4% lower than last year. And since income taxes are not due until 7/31 due to the governor's executive order, we'll have to wait until August or September to be able to really compare last year to this year and see the effect on income tax. And while eating tax has fallen, it has held up much better than I expected. When I prepared the first revenue estimates in March for the pandemic, for the remainder of the year, I expected March and April eating tax to fall 70% and the remainder of the year to be 50% lower each month. But March eating tax was only, quote, only 30% lower, and April 51% lower than 2019, so much better than I expected. And to date, May is 68% lower. However, we still have not received returns from 18 to 20 of our restaurants in town. Metro commuter lot permit activity has started to increase very slightly, but of course not nearly at past levels. In May/June of 2019, the village sold 261 quarterly permits and 159 monthly permits. In 2020, during that same time period, we've sold 8 quarterly and 32 monthly permits. Out of 400 annual permits that we sell each year, 38 have been returned due to work at home orders or job loss. Building permit activity continues to be a complete surprise. In May, there were a total of 169 permits issued compared to 148 last year, so an increase of 21 permits. And through June 21st, there have been 119 permits in the month of June. And last year, during the whole month, there was 134. And one contractor I spoke with suggested that since people are not going on vacation this year, they are instead spending money on fixing or updating their homes, especially since they've been home and seen some projects that they would like to get done. And finally, as the state moves into phase 4 at the end of this week, the financial sky will begin to brighten a little bit. My only hope is that we do not get a second wave of this virus, but we continue moving in a positive direction. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have on either the May report that's in the packet or what I just spoke about.
I hear none.
I got a comment.
Yes, Lee?
Just a quick comment for next year's budgeting then. Can we just make sure that we're a little bit more conservative on the building permit revenues for FY21 then, given that maybe a lot of people are doing work this year and then they might not do it next year?
Sure, make a note of that now. Thank you, Lee.
Andy, I also had a question.
Yes, David?
So when we do go into budgeting for next year, I think it'd be helpful if we could also have an idea if there is a second wave, using what we learned from the first initial hit, like using those percentage is just as a guidance for what we could expect for revenue decreases, so we can kind of see, projected bad case scenario, hopeful scenario, and that way we can just kind of see what the differences are from a revenue perspective. I think there's interesting trends that occurred, and so that might give us a better guidance as we start to look forward, as we see, maybe some areas increase a little bit and others decrease.
Yep, I'll take care. I'll note that now. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I hear none. And can we move on to our village administrator? A review of a staff update on the COVID-19 budget response plan and provide additional direction and several next steps. Jeff?
Thank you, Andy. As the board knows, we met in April, in May, and now here we are in June to kind of provide a little bit macro effect of COVID on the organization. Tom has used his treasurer's report in the last 2 months to give the board some specifics. Clearly, I would like to wait until July, our mid-year budget, to talk about some federal and state reimbursements, some grant applications we have in, the hiring freeze we have on vacant positions. I also want to circle back to the pause or the deferment of our capital projects, specifically street and water main, as we'll come back to the board in July to touch those larger issues. But since then, I think the board has done a couple of things. We've extended deadlines for certain administrative fees, such as vehicle stickers, to ease the financial burden on our residents and business owners. In addition, we've relaxed certain liquor and zoning ordinance prohibitions to allow our restaurants and our business owners to maximize their business and the sales. That said, I think we can continue to be concerned about the lag in some of our large revenue sources. As Tom said, some of our local taxes, our building permits are coming in a positive state, but clearly our sales tax, we're still behind a couple of months on that, and our income tax too. So we do want to wait to see where all that lands. But in addition to what we've done, we've kind of looked at our business licenses, our water bills, our eating establishment tax, our metro parking lot permit sales, our building permits, and then also our property tax. As you know, property tax, DuPage County allows residents in their first installment to delay that payment until the second one in September. And Tom reported to me today, we got our second payment of that first installment, and we are actually a little above. So any concerns we may have had that people were taking advantage of that delay or that deferment of payment really is not the case here. People are paying their property tax bills on their first installments. Tom explained building permit activity for April, May, and June, continuing to be strong. I think eating establishment tax, as he noted, in April, we ended up having, in the May bill for April, we ended up having about 10 businesses that haven't paid. And to date now for the May bill due in June, we still have about 20 out there. Business licenses, I shared with you, we've got about a total of 650 businesses licensed. of which right now we have about 160 that have not paid for their license. In a normal year, that's about 99 to 100. That's what it was last year. We have not sent out a late notice, a letter, and that late fee for each month is $5. So I guess where I'm going on this, and I've talked with several board members, we've done some things deferring, relaxing certain ordinances to make it easier. At the same time, we've seen, while the hardship is there, we understand people are without work in some cases. All in all, we're seeing people paying their bills. Does the board have an appetite for doing anything else with relief or extending deadlines that you want to direct staff to provide more information to you for our next meeting in July?
Anybody have a comment?
I have a comment.
Lee, go ahead.
So a couple of things that I was thinking about in terms of potential relief are, number one, for anyone that's canceled their train permit in the last, and I was thinking just in general, the train hasn't been used since pretty much mid-March. So I wanted to get the board's opinion too on just potentially backdating any train cancellations back to April 1st. So that was one potential source of relief. And then the other source of relief was potentially looking at business owners who were forcibly shut down by the government and sort of prorating their business license for the year. So if the government forced them to close for, let's say, 2 months, they would get credit on their business license for 2 months since they weren't able to operate legally.
Anybody wish to comment on that?
I wanted to ask something, Andy.
Yes, go ahead, Wayne.
When there's a hardship on a business and they can't afford to get the license, is there any way we could discern whether they could be separated and given some latitude, or also could we just forget about the penalty and ask them to pay the bill, even if they have to do it in installments? I know it's more paperwork, but anything we could do to make it easier on the business if they're having a lot of problems.
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, just two things to clarify for everybody, and those are good questions, Lee and Wayne. With regard to train parking permits and the annual permits, as you may or may not know, we've had 400 permits issued for our annual, and to date we've had about 35 to 37 return those. And as Lee had said, he was hoping to backdate that to a certain date. What we do, we have a policy in place that allows you to prorate. So for example, if you came in June and said, I'm not going to need to park for the rest of the year, can I get something back? You would get from July through December as a prorated amount with a $20 fee for administrative fee. With the business license, I think we kind of, to that question, Wayne, or maybe that was to Lee a little bit also, knowing that phase 4 is going to be here on June 26th, that business will be allowed to reopen to a certain extent. I think we would recommend tying any sort of relief or extension of a deadline, whether that was from March until June, because conceivably businesses can reopen here at the end of June, early July, and start to take in revenue. So those were just 2 points I wanted to make.
Yeah, my point was more around businesses that were forced to close, not that chose to close. So I know a couple eateries in town decided to close. I don't know that we necessarily, or at least in my opinion, necessarily have to give relief to those businesses since they opted not to open. But for some other businesses that the government literally mandated them to close, that's kind of who I'm talking about.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So I guess in theory, I want to make this as easy as possible. I think we should do something, but I want to make this as clean and equitable to actually enact. So like from the train reimbursement thing, I would just be in favor of maybe if they want to apply for the refund, let's waive the administrative fee. That way that gives them some money in their pockets they're saving instead of having to worry about going back and forth and trying to figure out all the additional things. On the business license front, I wonder if we just waive the late fees until August, and kind of similar to kind of how we, just to keep dates clean and simple, how we're doing the vehicle stickers, just say, we're gonna waive all late fees up until the vehicle sticker deadline. And after that point, we're gonna have the late fees kick into effect. So that way, if they weren't open, they have a couple of months, hopefully, to get business operating as normal and they can pay for their fee. And then they've gotten quite a few months, if they haven't already paid, then to save some money and to make sure they can get their business operating again. So that would be my personal opinion. But I think we should do something at this point.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
so in agreement with David, I think let's make it simple. And the fact is, if anyone from this point comes in and wants to waive their parking fee for the training, I agree. Let's just get rid of the $20 administration fee and let's make that happen. I'm not, just come forward as they want instead of having to worry about how far back. It's as of this date, because we don't know who was not doing what. And on that same token, when it comes to businesses, whether the government had told them to or mandated them to shut down, I know of businesses that were still open and still operating in some capacity, whether they were using their facility to do videos, whether they were using their facility to do isolated training. So therefore, I would much rather just simply go in and waive any of the late fees that were proposed should they need to get their license and have not paid for their license as of yet.
Okay, Bruce. I did not hear from.
Can I get one more comment in?
Please go ahead, Lee.
So the only reason why I picked April 1st for the train is basically the train's been empty since mid-March. So a few people that I know that canceled their permits, I asked them the last time they were in the commuter downtown, and it was basically like March 12th, 13th, or 14th. That was similar for me. Like I haven't been there since mid-March. And I think Jeff was telling me too that he noticed too that the train's been empty since April. So that's the reason why I was saying April 1st. And then I think if we're only going to waive the fee, I think we should then pay everybody that's already canceled that $20 processing fee as well. Because I know I just canceled last week, so.
Okay, who didn't I hear from? Wayne, did you have a comment on that?
No, I would be in favor of the April 1st thing for the train station. That's pretty much been a disaster as far as anybody taking the train. There's no money being made by anybody there. And again, what David was saying about the businesses waiving the penalty for not getting the business licenses. Anything we can do. I mean, other villages are doing things like coupon sales or, I think Itasca just did something where they've got some loans that they're providing businesses or so, anything Roselle can do on to help get through this COVID-19, and hopefully by, let's say, September, where David seems to be always saying that's maybe when we'll open up again, barring a second wave. So I'm in agreement with the way David said it, and anything we can do, it's already late in the year and we're not doing that bad. So I would say, let's try to waive as many fees as we can and help businesses to stay in Roselle.
Okay. Barb, would you like to make a comment?
I would say waive the train fee from April 1st, because it doesn't look like people are going to be going back anytime soon, taking the train.
Okay. And who did I miss here?
And then can I just make a 1 point for clarification too on the train? I think we should potentially just make the retroactiveness, if that's what we're all aligning to, for the next like 3 to 4 weeks or something, because obviously we don't want someone just to cancel in December and say, hey, I want my money back from April. I think we should just publicize it and say, hey, if you're not going to use your pass or you don't want your pass or whatever it is, if you return it by the end of July or mid-July or whatever that date is, or if you've already turned it in, then we give them the difference that we didn't give them before, and then kind of just cut it off there and not just make it like running till the end of the year.
Oh, then, Mr. Mayor, I got a comment as well then. If
Yes,
we're going to do that, then let's put a timeline like Lee's saying, but then I'm not in agreement with canceling the $20 administration fee. So if we're going to do April to, if we're going to say retroactive as of April, and you have until, I don't know, let's say July 31st to come in and make that cancellation, then there's a $20 administration fee.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But after July 31st, it is what it is.
Right, exactly. Then it is what it is. It goes back to the old policy. If you turn it in September 10th, then you basically get it prorated, you know, from October to the end of the year and pay the processing fee.
Mr. Knippen, since that's a policy on the books, it, just the majority of the board can change that?
You know, because it's a policy on the book, Mayor, it'd be better in these circumstances for you to issue an executive order consistent with the board's direction. And it is consistent with your authority under the governor's direction. So that would, to me, make it very clear that it's lawful.
Okay.
And then it's been the board's pattern in the past to approve that after it's done. So the board will see its recommendation in writing, and it'll be back for approval. Otherwise, we have to amend the ordinance, and amending the ordinance at this point doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because eventually that program should come back into existence as it currently exists.
Okay, so it would be done under the executive order then, correct?
Yes.
The consensus of the board.
And Andy, it's Jeff again. We would do the same as the board. I know you haven't heard from Patrick yet. What I heard for business licenses is waive late fees until through August.
That is correct.
Executive order for that also.
Okay. And then Patrick, do you have an opinion?
Sure, I'm on board with the business license and what has been discussed. My only stipulation will be with the Metro parking, as long as it's not an administration nightmare to look up and get the names and addresses of the 30 people or 30 odd people that already have relinquished their pass. I want to be fair across the board and making sure that they receive their $20. So as long as we're able to do that, I'm good with the timeline that has been outlined for the rest of, you know, the program and getting them back their $20.
Patrick, just for clarity though, that's not what we were discussing. Just so you know, what we decided on is we were going to let people go retroactive from April all the way to July, which means that someone like Lee, who's handed his pass in last week, he would not get, he would keep his $20, but we would have to pay him to go back to April. So what we've said is they continue to keep the administration fee of $20. We're just now allowing people to go in and retroactively get their credit from April.
Right. So
it's actually a lot more money than
it's $75.
One at a time, please.
Sorry.
I was just saying it could be a lot more than $20.
But without making this an administration nightmare, and you know, I'm good with whatever the rest of the board or staff feels. What I don't even know what the price is for the monthly or whatnot, but I'm on board with it. I just want to make this easy, but I also want to make it fair. So.
Okay, so then just to highlight, Lee, you wanted to add something there?
No, I was just going to tell Patrick that basically the differential between like April, May, and June is $75. So that's the amount extra that we'd be giving people back if they canceled their permits. And then to Bruce's point, they would be charged the $25 administration fee.
Wayne?
Just one thing, do we even know what any of the other towns along the Metro line are doing with their parking permits? Say Schaumburg or Itasca or Wooddale or?
Well, and I believe, Wayne, where all this started is because we have a policy in place that a permit, a annual permit may be, if you return it, you're prorated for the month to the next month with a $20 administration. That's what we have on the books now, and that's what we're working towards. For further relief, it has been suggested that we go all the way back to April. I don't know if I can concur with that, only because it's did we or didn't we, or, you know, who was and who wasn't, but I will be more than happy to go with the majority of the board. So the way we have it right now is, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that we are going to go back and refund for non-use of an annual permit from April, okay, without the administration fee. And then the administration fee, if you don't file it by July 31st, is that what it was, Bruce?
No, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Can I may try it again? If I understood the board, we are going to, anyone who requests to get a refund will pay the $20 administration fee, but we will give them a credit to their pass as of April of this year. We will refund the pass as of April, but we're only giving people up until July 31st to make that request.
Okay.
That's
But they
correct.
are paying that $20 fee.
And they're paying the $20 administration fee when they make that request.
Yep.
Okay, is everybody in concurrence?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Patrick? Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jeff, do you have that direction?
Yep, and we already spoke about the business license with the waiving of the late fees until August 31st, correct, David?
Yes.
Correct. And I think this would be great stuff. I know we're not on this next, we're not at it yet, but I think this would be good just to maybe include in the, if we are going with the summer issue, this would just be good information to include probably and lay it out so that it's very clear, because I'm worried about how we're gonna explain this.
Staff will work on that the next couple of days here.
All right, Jeff, is there anything else that you would like to add? We had several other steps that you
Two more things on there. Municipal facilities. Jason, why don't you walk through that with the board?
Sure. Can the board see kind of that slide that's up there?
Yes.
Yep.
So I just wanted to hit the highlights of what staff is recommending relative to the reopening effective July 6th. Right now, we're just looking at reopening Village Hall to public traffic, keeping police, fire, and public works status quo, which is no walk-in, really by appointment only. And then obviously the police department has access to 24/7 phone in their lobby. No change there. The reopening with public works, we are recommending shortened hours relative to what time we open, as well as what time we close, which is outlined here. Opening at 9 instead of 8 a.m., closing at 4 instead of 6 p.m. on Mondays and 5 p.m. on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And then currently we close at 1 p.m. on Wednesdays. So looking to keep that 1 p.m. closure still in place. Really, what's driving this is, one, we're going to continue to maximize work from home for employees. So we're envision having about 50% of employees still working from home. So we'll have less staff to work these hours in the building. Also don't know and probably anticipate less demand for people coming into Village Hall as we've continued to really meet that demand currently through our online means and over the phone. And also targeting that initial hour of opening for kind of our vulnerable population is recommended kind of by the state guidance as well. Looking at all visitors wearing face coverings when they enter Village Hall to come into the lobby. Also looking to reconfigure the lobby, put in the 6-foot social distancing markings, playing around with some of the tables and some other things to kind of provide a little clearer of a path to go to community development or go to finance to ensure distancing and order in the lobby. We've already installed the glass partitions at the lobby for in between the public and our employees. We'd also be looking to restrict second floor access to appointment only. If they're unable to be helped downstairs and they want to they have a question or concern for up here, they could obviously always call us or set up a special time then that we could arrange so we can have appropriate distancing and can help people still, but will not allow them to just walk up here like is the current practice. Continue to really emphasize the kind of the low contact services to the community, and the safest way still remains online, over the phone, email, as well as using the drop box. So we're really going to continue to hammer that home to the community. And finally, with anything, us having been closed for 3 months now, that we would just evaluate our operations, talk to finance, talk to community development, get an idea of what's going on in Village Hall to see if we do have to make any modifications. That would likely involve bringing more employees back in order to probably meet, to extend our open hours. So really this information is more about, I think, what the public can expect and what we're recommending the operations here. Obviously, the second piece to this is what we're going to be doing with our employees that we're currently doing relative to making sure they're safe and wellness checks on them and ensuring they have all the appropriate sanitation and distancing within the facility for our employees. But for the board for tonight, this is more about, the public interaction here at Village Hall.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Sure, go ahead, please, Patrick.
Jason, will we be stepping up, wiping down the doors or anything periodically throughout the day?
We do have we've spoken about that. I think we still have to finalize the role of our staff in cleaning those surfaces and the expectation with it. We're going to have hand sanitizer coming into the building with masks for the public. I think that's going to be the best, is for people to do that, because as we know, the minute you clean a handle and the next person who touches it. So I think our practice is going to emphasize that they use hand sanitizer when entering the building, wearing a mask, versus asking our staff on the hour, on the half hour to wipe down door handles.
Okay. All right. I think that's everything else is outlined great. That's the only thing that maybe we should monitor, but well done.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, Andy, I had my hand up.
I'm sorry, Wayne, I can only see some of the screen.
So it was exactly what Patrick asked, but I wanted to put it at a different bent. It has a lot to do with whether people will feel comfortable coming in to do the services that are offered. So to articulate how you're cleaning it and how often and what the procedure will be very important for the public confidence.
Anybody?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
Mr.
please,
Mayor.
Dave.
not related, but just to change everyone's view here real quick to help them out a little bit. If you go to the very top of your meeting, there should be a view options button. If you click that drop down, there's a side-by-side mode, and that will actually allow you to split your screen, and you can drag the screen over to the left so you can actually see everyone. I just figured this out. I wanted to pass that along because it has changed my world and made it a lot easier to be in the meeting.
Oh, hi, David.
All right.
That's beautiful.
That's
Now
all I
need a
have.
bigger font. I need a bigger font, David. How do I do that?
Yes, Lee.
Just that one comment on this too, like when we communicate to the public, can we also maybe make one more bullet point that just reinforces, like, bring as few of people as you need to do your village business. So obviously if you have a kid that you have to bring in, bring your kid. But if it's a husband and wife that only one of them could come, like, try to limit the number of people in general.
Sure. Yep. Good point.
And another thing, Jason, I don't know if it would work or not, but what I've seen several businesses that are doing, they're letting people in by appointment. That's all they call if you're outside. So, I mean, if we had a number or something to call, like the front desk for the business, and somebody can escort you in, and then it can be taken care of that way also. Just another idea out there. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on then to.
Andy, one last thing there with regards to the newsletter. Staff just wanted to confirm with the board a recommendation by our communications coordinator, Missy. Because of the cancellation of public events, taste, everything else this summer, that's the majority of our summer newsletter. This is the biggest PR piece that the village puts out, our newsletter. And we're recommending that we reduce that, the scope or the size of that to a 4-page, focus on municipal business, some of the things like David was talking about, and do away with the advertising for this to help business owners. Missy provided a memo which was pretty detailed in there. We're just looking for some concurrence from the village board. Do you agree with what we're recommending?
David?
I agree. I guess my only question is, we've only talked about events through the taste. I think about things like the recycling event we have in the fall and other stuff like that. Maybe that doesn't play a role into this, but that was just my only thought is normally there's some other things that start to tease into that. Do we need to make a decision on those, or are we cutting all that out and just keeping this strictly COVID-19 update?
We can, but I do think with the governor's phased approach, obviously phase 5 is a vaccine, and that's where you can have more than 50. So it's probably unrealistic, but we can, as a staff, kind of identify those, Cocoa Crawl, the recycling event and the impact, and include something like that, if that makes sense.
And
I agree. I think we need to at least tell the public that we're going to review and evaluate that as time goes on versus inferring that these might be canceled. Because I would take an example of the recycling event. If we get into stage 4, you're able to have 100 people outside, if my memory serves correctly. We don't have that, and people are driving through. So I wouldn't want to cancel, say, the recycling event in that manner. So I think we should just allude to that anything other than the ones that are in through July, we will evaluate and review and come back with some level of an announcement.
Yeah, Wayne.
okay, so here's just another thought. I don't know if it'll be a good idea for you, but I wouldn't cancel the ads in the summer edition, because the difference in dollars between the small newsletter and the bigger one isn't that much. And if we ate those $500 or whatever it is, and just let the businesses have a flyer on that until the fall edition, because we've got ads that are, pretty loyal advertisers. Why don't we give them a break and keep the ads? I mean, with the pandemic, that's the last thing you want to do is cut advertising. So I would be more like going with the full newsletter, but waiving the fees on the ads.
Patrick?
Not to get off topic, but it was brought up about the recycling event. I don't recall talking about that for this year. I know that takes a couple months to plan. Do we even bring that up now? Jason, I think that you kind of oversee that. What's your thoughts? Or I don't want to sidetrack this and bring up another, another thing.
Can certainly bring something back for the board at a future meeting, but early discussions were around strong considerations to cancel it. I know the shredding's been canceled by the bank, and I just think the interaction, the use of our public safety, touching items, there may be some concern from some of the other sponsors that, I haven't confirmed with them their participation, but I would envision that type of event, and for exposing our employees to some of that, I would want to, have a little more info to come back to the board with, so that they could make a decision sooner rather than later about it.
I agree. And with that being said, I think that, the earlier we're able to let people know that that's not going to happen, I think is the better, my opinion. I mean, I would love to have it, but Jason, you bring up some great points in, the safety of staff and everybody. So,
Bruce, you're itching there?
Yeah, so 2 things. I agree. Let's get some information. I mean, if there's going to be no participation in terms of that, then there's no sense of having the recycling event. So, but moving on. And then I would not be in agreement with continuing with the ads regardless of the dollars. We are giving our constituents as much relief as we can, but at some point, this village is an operational business, and we too have to retain some of the dollars, or we will go under as well. So therefore, even little things like $1,000 here or there, they add up, and it adds no value to something on a newsletter that is only 3 or 4 pages that says, and by the way, we're not doing anything other than opening up our lobby.
Okay. Anybody else? Lee?
So regarding the ads, we were still going to charge for the ads though, correct?
We normally charge, yes.
Right. So, I mean, and the memo seems like we're just not going to do the ads at all. I mean, I think it's fine if businesses want to pay for an ad. I don't necessarily think we should waive it. If it goes out without ads, that's fine. But if, let's say, you know, Andy wanted to pay for an ad for his business, or, you know, a restaurant down the street wants to pay for an ad, I don't see why we would say no to that. Like, some businesses might want to still advertise because they're like, hey, we're still open, come see us, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't think we should waive the fee, but I think we should still have the opportunity to have a business advertise.
The ads are done annually, guys. They're not done for publication.
Got it.
Mm.
It's, you know,
Yeah, then yeah, that makes sense not to have them in there then.
so. Anybody else?
Andy?
David?
has a question.
Yeah, so I guess less about the recycling, but I think just in general, we need to just have a statement because we've only gone through events through August. And my only point is we need to address what the rest of the year looks like. I think that's going to be the next question. And I'm really proud of the fact that we got ahead of this. Now we're just seeing some communities talk about the 4th of July and other stuff like that. So I think we've level set and been very honest and transparent with the community as soon as we knew stuff. So I want to continue that and just make sure we're charging ahead, regardless of whatever the event is. We just need to start to continue to set that tone and know what we're moving towards in that regard. I don't know if it makes sense to have ads in this. To me, I feel like the value is going to be kind of having a facts-based kind of what's going on around COVID. How is the village responding? What are we doing to help you? And if we wanted to do something, I would be very interested in either creatively brainstorming what can we do from an event perspective. I know like Wheaton has closed their Main Street. Maybe instead of doing the taste, we can close down Main Street and just have some, you know, spread out tables for people to have lunch and community meals together, social distance and whatnot. But like there's creative things we can maybe look at doing, and then maybe allow the business community to chip in to maybe have much more of a event or an economic kind of focus piece. I think to have advertisements for business, as we're talking about the health impacts and what we're doing from a business perspective, detracts from the message. So I would much rather we move forward and keep this more COVID related, and then on the back end, work with the business community, see what we can do, and maybe have a more publication, whether it's electronic, maybe it's mail, we can explore those options, but keep those two separate at this point.
Okay, so what I'm hearing now is, David, you're not in favor of putting the ads in, or just doing it on a call. But Bruce, where were you, please?
No ads.
Okay, Patrick? You're muted, Patrick. Barb?
No ads.
Okay. Who am I missing here? Wayne?
I would be ads.
Okay. So it looks like I do hit, yeah, Lee.
For the ads piece, because they're annual, maybe is there a way we could just put like a link to a PDF file of the ads that we normally get every quarter, and just throw a link on the reporter page? That way, at least they still get the exposure for the businesses out there that have paid for the ad. If someone's looking at PDF file, they could link directly to like the advertisers of the business, for example. That way, at least they're not printed, but they're at least publicized.
Okay. So I got two for ads and 3 for no.
But for clarity, not printing the ads.
Not printing the ads. Okay. So if there was an indication of who sponsors are advertising, we can put a link in is what you're saying, is to put a link on
Right, like on one of the pages, just to say, hey, go to this link on because if you open it in PDF, and a lot of people do, I'm assuming through e-news, they could click on the live link and it could go to a page that's hosted on the Roselle website. It shows the businesses that support the Roselle Reporter.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be in the physical copy of the Roselle Reporter.
Okay. So Jeff, do you have clarification there? We're not putting it in?
Yeah, I do, Andy. Thank you.
All right.
That's it for that item.
All right. Good.
One more item on there, Andy, with regards to
village administrator to provide the village board with the status report of the Envision Roselle 2020-2050 community vision plan.
And I won't spend too much time. We're not looking for any specific direction tonight, but obviously COVID-19 had one other impact, devastating, I think, because over the last year and a half, you can see on your screen a group of leaders from the community, public agency partners, key communicators from several organizations have been working very diligently to pull together one of the strategic priorities of the village board, and that is to develop a community-wide vision. And I'd like to thank, obviously, David as a representative of the board for spending a great deal of his own time working on with staff, superintendents, executive directors, and other elected officials from our schools, parks, and libraries to get to the point where we're at now. And I think what we have in front of you, what we're sharing is an executive summary which outlines participation, who participated, outlines the process we used, and then kind of where we've left off now with vision, values, and strategic priorities. There's still a lot to unpack. There's still a lot more to do on this, but clearly the efforts of this group, and more important, our public outreach process, which started actually last August with a hard copy survey at the Taste of Roselle, led to a community online survey in the fall, led to 3 different focus groups with participants from our business community, residents of all walks of life, and finally a community forum, which many of you attended. We had over 100 people there participating. So kudos to the village board, kudos to our other agencies for providing our community an opportunity to kind of map out what Roselle may look like in the future. And I think actually with everything going on more recently, when you look at some of our values and you look at some of our strategic priorities moving forward, some of them ring very true and will allow us that nice transition to the next phase of this project, which would be to basically look at these priorities and begin to develop initiatives for each one of those and divide those initiatives over a time period, 3 different time periods for the next 30 years. And obviously that can be revisited after 5 years. We've seen similar initiatives in other communities facilitated by our consultant that kind of bring back the issue after 5 years. It's revisited by the group and the community, and there may be some tweaks to those values and priorities. But all in all, we got sidetracked by our COVID because we were going to have a town hall meeting, and this was going to be a big part of that release. But more important, we wanted to get this in front of the board to show progress, to give a big round of applause to the people that participated, all the people in our community that gave us their viewpoints. And I think you have a good executive summary document that will allow us to go to the next step of beginning to develop initiatives for each one of those priorities. And I think when you look at inclusive communities, when you look at service and how we provide those public services, with everything we're going through, there's 2 opportunities there to get members of the community involved helping draft that. So I wanted to provide David an opportunity to kind of put his 2 cents in on this because I think he has a very good perspective. So with that, I would turn that over to David.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I think this has been a really phenomenal effort. And I know this is something that came out of our own board strategic plan back in 2017 when we met in the summer. And so the fact that I think Jeff has done a great job, as well as staff, working with our different government agencies within the village, but this really gives clarity, focus, and really prioritization of what they can be working together on. And I think the group as a whole appreciated the fact that there was a bit more structure to their interactions and bringing everyone usually worked with one another, but not everyone all at the same time. And I think that this really gives us an opportunity to work as a larger group instead of our individual boards with different responsibilities to really address issues that the community as a whole is seeing and they'd like to see us prioritize. I think it's really easy to get into looking at these big ideas and feel like, how are we going to accomplish that? What are we going to do? But I think the fact is this is a plan that needs to last many boards, many different personalities, and different values within the community. And I think this will allow structure, but flexibility for people to really dig into what they can do from a policy standpoint and not handcuffing anyone to a specific you must do X, Y, Z, but more so, how do we accomplish these broader goals and how does our community shape and evolve to really grow into these areas? So I think it's an exciting way for us to look and see our community grow, especially with our centennial anniversary coming up in the near future.
Anything else? Wayne?
It's a great blueprint that was done by a different group of people, and many of them have certain passions for this. I think the key will be when the supporting initiatives are put together, that people who are like heavy in education or environment are put on the right committees, and that would give it feet and legs to make it all happen. It's a great testimony to the village of Roselle to put this together. So kudos to all people that were involved in this. It's amazing.
Anything else, Jeff?
No, thank you.
Okay, then let's move right along to our consent agenda. All items on our consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, and non-controversial in nature, and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items. If I can have our village attorney give us a synopsis of the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On tonight's consent agenda, we have presentation and approval of the village board minutes of June 8th, 2020, and the approval of the fifth partial payment for the Devlin Influent Pump Project in the amount of $401,336.77.
Can I have a motion to accept this evening's
So
consent?
moved. So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Yep, just a moment, please. Trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Devitt.
Aye.
And our motion is carried. Moving on to our regular agenda under community development, trustee Poleski.
Mr. Mayor, I move to conduct a public hearing for the annexation of 7 North 580 Hawthorne.
Second.
All in favor? I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, it has to be a roll call vote.
I got it.
Thank you.
Hold on just a minute. All right, trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
And the motion is carried.
All right. Public notice was published in the Daily Herald on June 5th, 2020 for the annexation, and notice is on file with the village clerk. At this time, are there any questions or comments from the board regarding this annexation? Seeing none from the board. At this time, is there any member of the public or the petitioner that wishes to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak against this petition? Seeing none, is there any member of the public that wishes to ask a question of the petitioner? Seeing none, then at this time, is there a recommendation from the board to move forward with this annexation?
I think we should move forward.
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we need to,
You don't need to call a vote on this, Mr. Mayor.
We'll need a motion to close public hearing.
Information,
So
just
moved.
close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, and then we'll do a roll call.
Trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
and trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
motion is carried.
So at this time, Mr. Mayor, I move to pass an ordinance authorizing execution of an annexation agreement for 7 North 580 Hawthorne.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Domke.
Aye.
And our motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor, I move to pass an ordinance annexing territory to the Village of Roselle, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois, and establish an R2 single-family residence district zoning and amend the zoning map for 7 North 580 Hawthorne.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Our motion's carried.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend approval of a special use permit for automotive repair as an accessory use to a permitted use at 380 Monaco with conditions.
Second.
And then at this time, Karen, do you wish to present anything?
I think it's fairly straightforward. If you look at the Plan Commission packet and the recommended conditions, the actual main use on the site is going to be sort of an office, and the business owner has trucks and sort of commercial vans that will be parked elsewhere, and he's just desires to be able to maintain those vehicles in this location where his office is, instead of using an additional space to conduct those needs. And then if he receives approval from the village board, he'll be installing a triple basin onto the site.
And I'll just add as well that the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend this 6-0 at their virtual meeting on the 16th. So
Wayne?
I just ask a question, Karen. What is the lot next door to that? That's 384. From the aerial view, it looks like there's like parking, all kinds of things in there. Do you know what that is?
I think it's a warehouse use. I know code enforcement has been working with them. Monaco is sort of a difficult area for code enforcement due to various issues regarding private streets and stuff. But he does have a very large gate that blocks most of that from view from the street.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? The only thing that I would add to this is, because it is such a difficult area, I hope that the petitioner is mindful of the parking situation there. If it's going to be an office or whatever, how many employees they are parking, if they can accommodate that many cars.
Yeah, I believe it's only 1 to 3 people who will be working out of the office every day. So
Hopefully it won't grow. Okay. Anybody else?
Good with it.
Then I need a motion. Or I'm sorry.
So I'll make a motion to approve per Planning and Zoning's recommendation.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Poleski,
aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Sarno.
Aye.
Your motion is carried.
And then, Mr. Mayor, I move to recommend approval of a special use permit for an adult daycare center at 725 East Irving Park Road, units A, C, and D. And I'll give it over to Karen again.
So Markland is a Chicagoland nonprofit that works with children and adults that have various intellectual disabilities. They've rented 3 of the 4 units at 725 East Irving Park Road for their adult-only community day center program. As you can see from the floor plan on the PowerPoint slide, it's mostly just teaching skills and sort of socializing with the program participants. And so they've requested a special use to operate at this location.
And I'll add, similar to the last one, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend this 6-0.
Anybody else have any comments to add? Can I have a motion to move forward then?
So moved.
I'll make a motion to move forward as recommended by Planning and Zoning.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
I'm sorry, who made the second?
Lee.
Lee?
Trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
And our motion is carried. Anything else this evening?
I think that's enough from community development tonight.
You've done well. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to administration. Trustee Sarno.
Okay, adopt a resolution approving the assignment of a commercial sublease between the Village of Roselle and Pammy Cakes Cafe LLC, Metro Station Coffee Vendor Sublease, upon final approval of the village attorney.
Okay.
Are we going to discuss this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, am I able to speak? Sorry.
Please, go ahead.
First, I just want to let the board know that we are having technical difficulties with live streaming on YouTube. Apparently that connection has not been able to was not made. This meeting is live on Zoom and will then be uploaded probably first thing tomorrow morning to YouTube so people can watch it tomorrow. But just wanted to let you know that we're having some technical difficulties. Specific then to the assignment of the commercial sublease, I was in talks with Ms. Klein late Friday, she had spoken with her attorney about the agreement, at which time she shared with me, I think some continuing reservations about her ability to reopen, given the ongoing pandemic and the impact on ridership. And basically told me she's not prepared to sign the agreement and would be likely considering late July at the earliest, and that would be subject on reevaluation of the ridership and how many people are coming through the station. As you recall, the last meeting, I think part of staff's desire in the boards to get an agreement signed was to give that vendor some contractual rights, I guess, to be in that space. And right now, the vendor doesn't have that, yet they do have their equipment in there. They don't have business insurance for the space. So given that sort of late, information coming late to staff, felt it was still appropriate to keep this on the agenda. And just wanted to bring that up to you. I spoke with our attorney about it as well, first thing today. He wasn't available on Friday. And he had his thoughts, I think, also about, the situation that the village is in, given the lack of a sublease agreement for Ms. Klein to be in that space, and a sort of unknown surrounding when she would like to sign an agreement. And as we know, the agreement shows no rent, no security deposits, so really no money owed to the village, but she would likely incur some costs to obtain the necessary insurance and maybe some other business expenses, get a license from the village. That obviously creates costs for her, yet not reopening. So she has some underlying rightful concerns about kind of the economics of that situation. But just want to bring it to the board's attention. And Jim, if Jim has thoughts about sort of the agreement and Ms. Klein's current position.
I think the agreement was drafted in a fair way, in the way that the board previously directed. My primary concern at this point is the lack of liability insurance on the premises that the business is currently occupying, and the equipment there. Now, I understand that the equipment, or some of the equipment anyway, is owned by Maple Roasters, and it's not owned by her. So there's a possibility that in absence of insurance, the village could be on the hook if that equipment was destroyed in a fire or something like that. So as a consequence, that's where my concern lies. In the absence of the insurance, my preference would be is that equipment is out of there, so the village doesn't have any liability exposure. I know that staff hasn't had time to explore that as an option at this point. I don't think that there's any better business that's available to go in there in a shorter or prompt fashion. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that potential liability exposure. It would be good, in my opinion, to close that area off until we have a new lease and insurance on the premises.
Bruce?
I would also have a concern because if I recall from our last conversation, she has to go in there, or someone has to go in there to maintain some of that equipment, running water through it, et cetera. I'd be even concerned, not just from equipment, but any kind of slip and trip or fall could result in some liability there as well. So my preference would be is that if she wants to defer anything, including getting any type of insurance, then she should work it out with Maple Roasters to have him remove that equipment and store it on her behalf.
Anybody else have a comment? Lee?
I agree with Bruce. Makes sense to me.
Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to talk with her and let her know that, you know, besides what Jim had stated, and if she's not able to move it or if it's not feasible, I don't know the equipment. I'm not sure if that's feasible to be able to move that. And, you know, I think we just need to talk with her a little longer and see, let her know what Jim had said, see if she can move it. If not, let her know that with the, you know, our recommendation is to sign the lease, that we're willing to work with her, but we would like for her to sign the lease, get insurance in place for everybody to be at ease. I think that's the easiest way to do this.
Jim, you look like you have something to say.
No, the only thing I was going to say is the actual notice of the removal, if we get to that point, goes to Maple because they're the property owners. As I understand it, I don't think anything in there belongs to her. And I think that she had indicated, or Maple had indicated, that they were going to either lease it to her or let her use it. But they are part of this. They are part of this issue, I guess, is what I want to make clear. So as a consequence, we're actually going to be dealing with them as well if we're asking that it be removed from the premises. And I would still recommend that, despite the fact that it's going to be Maple and her. It's going to complicate things for her as well and make things more difficult. But I think that, you know, the suggestion that Lee made, that I think it was Lee, that she needs to move it off premises and have Maple stored if Maple wants the equipment is a good one. And the other thing is that the sooner we start that process, the better off I think we are. I don't know if she's explored the amount of the premium that would be required to ensure that. And it may be, you know, at least at this point, economical to buy that insurance or have Maple buy that insurance, because essentially what they're buying through that insurance would be storage space until the board finally makes the decision of how long it's going to let the option to lease remain outstanding.
Bruce, I see you, David.
Yeah, Jim, I was just going to go down there. She could, without a lease, could she get an insurance to transfer the liability of equipment and or if there's maintenance of that equipment to her and or Maple and remove the village from that without a lease?
I think that only the insurance company can answer the question. I'm not 100% sure whether that's available or not, Bruce.
Okay.
But people do insure chattels as chattels, so I would think that that may be available.
Yeah, I would then turn it into a storage facility, like, you know, any kind of the rental places, because then that would cover that liability.
Yep.
David, you are next.
Insurance for storage.
Yeah, I was similar line of thought, but even like having the conversation, bringing Maple Leaf back into this and seeing if maybe they can get a short-term policy just to insure it since there is their equipment, and maybe she can work out a deal with them that if they insure it in the interim between the lease and her start date, that maybe she could work out a deal with him to figure out if that would be a mechanism. I guess my only question too to Jason is, this came up kind of late. Are we getting a feeling that she's unsure if she wants to go through with this given the current situation? I wouldn't blame her. I mean, what a time to open up a coffee shop and a train station, but is there a long-term risk here? Like I would love for us just to have a conversation. I think we need to have open dialogue with her and with Maple Leaf and just see if we can come to a resolution. But is this a possibility that this might not actually execute at the end of the day?
And I think you have to assume it's likely that could happen, just given the last 3 months. And I don't see any suggestion that ridership's going to get back to such a level. And you know, you're wearing face masks in the station, potentially on the train, the desire of people to drink coffee and ability to do it while being masked. You know, I think there's a lot of headwinds on that space that didn't exist before the pandemic, which is why my conversations with her really have been month to month. And I think that each month that goes by, I'm sure she is concerned about the long-term viability of being able to reopen.
Okay, I guess knowing that, then I think it's still worth bringing in Maple Leaf so we can have a bigger dialogue, but I think any solution probably would make more sense to maybe get the property removed if we can't execute on something sooner, just because out of respect to her and everything else, like, it's not about the revenue, but I don't think it's fair to her or to us to continually drag this out when we know things are probably going to maybe be more prolonged. So just my personal thoughts.
Wayne?
Well, it's obvious we don't have all the data, and Pam has not had a chance to realize all of the implications of all of this, since this was such a late developing story on our board packet. So basically, you got to go back, like David was saying, or whoever said it, Patrick first. You got to get Pam involved and see if she's committed to this project or not. If the Maple Leaf would kind of carry her for a month or two on another insurance, or she like does get a rider on her insurance that doesn't cost so much. But you need to know what her commitment is. Jim brought up some great points, and now we got to go back to her. So this is a thing that's just going to be delayed until we get all parties to make a decision. We do remember that it's a nice amenity to have in the train station. So if we ever do get back to normal, we're going to probably want to fill that space with somebody. So let's get back to her, and then if necessary, just send us a memo and we can vote in the next meeting or whatever.
All right, Lee?
So yeah, I definitely agree that we should work with her. The one question though I do have for Jim is there any liability issue for us having that equipment there and not giving access to either party and something happens to the equipment because it's not being serviced?
Yeah, I would want the person that owns it to have the ability to go in and service it.
Right, that's what I mean. But like,
Because I think there is potential liability there, because we understand that if it's not serviced, it may damage or ruin the equipment. We hypothetically could put some kind of conditions on that, so we can monitor that situation. But yes, I think there's potential liability there, and we don't want to preclude access to a competent person to go in there and do what's necessary to maintain it.
thank you.
You know, if I owned the equipment, I would have insurance on my own equipment. So let's find out all of the dialogue that we need to find out and the story behind everything and move on from there.
Yes.
Makes
I
sense.
I think there's probably insurance. I mean, if Maple, there is a smart business person, they would have insurance on their equipment. So let's find out if there isn't, and we can move on from there.
Was there a second on the motion?
No,
we just had a discussion.
Okay, very good. The motion was made. I just want to know whether there was a second. But if there hasn't been a second, at least at this point, it can be, with the permission and acclamation of the board, removed from the agenda for later report by staff.
Yes.
So moved.
Great.
I'll second.
Do we need a roll call for that?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, anytime we get a motion, we got to have to roll call.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, bummer.
Madam Clerk?
Okay, just a moment. So removed from agenda for later report to the board.
Yes.
So that's what the motion is, Jim?
Yes, Patty.
All right, and who made the motion?
I did.
David did. Lee seconded.
All right, trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
And our motion's carried. We will hear about this later on then. Okay, moving right along. Fire, Mr. Devitt, we have nothing for you. Under police, Mr. Domke, we have nothing for you. Public Works, Mr. Berkshire, there's nothing for you. Under finance, Mr. Trejo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable list for June 22nd, 2020 in the amount of $1,567,269.94.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Trustee Trejo,
Abstain.
Trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Poleski,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire.
Yes.
Okay, then moving right along for executive session. Need a
I'll make a
motion?
motion to go to executive session.
Need a second?
Second.
The purpose of the executive session is personnel, the discussion of persons in a specific department of the village. We will have to have a motion to temporarily suspend the village board meeting. We will return to the board meeting after executive session and some final action is anticipated.
Can we do them all in one for a roll call, or do we need a motion? We need the motion to suspend.
You can do all the motions simultaneously unless someone makes a motion to divide the question.
Okay.
Could
So-
add to the motion to go into executive session, a motion to temporarily suspend the board meeting in anticipation of returning to the board meeting after executive session. But the board meeting would not be adjourned at this point.
Okay.
Okay, trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Poleski.
Aye.
And the motion is carried, so we shall return shortly.
So just a question, we're gonna leave this one, join the other one, and then join this one later.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure technically, thank you.
Kept open to rejoin.
Yes.
All right.
You guys there?
Yes.
And Debbie gets the endurance award for sticking it through. So
My new watch told me to get up and walk around, Andy, so we got to make this quick.
2-hour meeting. We haven't had one in a while.
Zoom, zoom, video.
Just waiting on Bruce
Let's see where we're.
Knippen. Is Patty here? Patty, do you see your other meeting? You ended it and kicked everyone out?
I did.
Okay,
Barb was the only one kind of still there when I ended it.
okay. Here comes Bruce. Let me check with Barb.
Tom, you gonna be all right there, buddy?
the show would just be starting if this was, the old normal times. So
Right.
No, we would be adjourning if this was the old normal time.
Sorry, lesson learned with Zoom. So we ended the last, or we pushed them out of the room last meeting, and apparently when you push them out, they can't come back in. So Brian is needing to re-invite them to the meeting. So both Jim and Barb.
Well, can't they just click on their link?
Yeah, it brings up a window saying unable to rejoin the meeting due to being kicked out, if you will.
How did we all get back in?
Because we didn't get kicked out.
Yeah, you left on your own.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we just forced them out to clear the room to make sure that they could create the next Zoom meeting, but lesson learned now. So
I
hopefully,
just need I need Barb's email, please.
so it's B Sarno, BSARNO at roselle.il.us.
And what is Jim's?
Someone just try.
JIM, hold on. Hold on here, sorry about that. I've got too many screens going. JIM at WKC.
I just sent it, Brian.
Okay.
An invite.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Let me go. I'll at least get Barb for the vote, and if Jim can't make it, then
That's probably Jim.
sorry about that, Jim. Just can I?
many times.
No, that's on our end. So you're on speakerphone right now.
Okay, real good. Thank you.
Invite Barb
Hey,
in.
so I'm here. Jason?
You're good, Jim.
You're on speakerphone. You're good.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I'm sorry. Are we waiting for others as well?
We're waiting for Barb.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Andy.
All right, so I need a motion to pass an ordinance amending ordinance number 80-949, establishing a pay plan for the village office and employees.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We're just done. Okay, I need, Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Poleski.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Okay. Other business. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Trejo,
Aye.
trustee Domke,
Aye.
trustee Devitt,
Aye.
trustee Berkshire,
Yes.
trustee Sarno,
Aye.
trustee Poleski.
Aye.
And our motion is carried. Everybody stay dry. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, you too.
Good night.
There.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay.